Buongiorno, everyone. Welcome to the match preview ahead of Friday night's game at St Mary's. I've got Dan here from the Saints View. How we doing, mate?
Yeah, as good as I can be at the moment, with lockdown pending. But yeah, I'm good. In a Saints perspective, I'm brilliant.
Mate, you must be laughing. This must be the best you've been feeling in years, is it?
Yeah, I mean, going into a game where if you win top of the league, it's not something that I think I can remember. I think maybe there was one opportunity under Koeman where we could have gone top for like a couple of hours, but nothing like this that I can remember. It's sort of since we've been promoted, what 8 years ago.
Hmm. So thanks, people are joining in now. So cheers for watching. I know it's a bit of an early one, but it's the reason for that is obviously it's a bit tricky with it being a Friday night. This game moved to Friday night for Sky, but I mean, what is a 3 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday nowadays, anyways, mate? I think you've had one and we've had none.
Yeah, no, it's very weird at the moment. I mean, I think it's all right with telly, but if it had been actually Friday night with fans, I think Newcastle fans would have been quite aggrieved about having to go to
Mate, we
Southampton.
always get stung on them travels, like especially Southampton. It would have been impossible. Like it's pretty much
Yeah,
France. It's like 6 hours away or something.
yeah,
But like you say, you're flying high. You're feeling good as a Southampton fan. Has the football matched the results? Has the performance on the pitch been as good as it looks as the table looks?
yeah. I think everything that we've picked up in terms of results, they've all been justified. If you look on the weekend, 4-3 against Villa, I think actually, if you look at the whole game, it's probably the fair result. We had 4 shots on target, we scored 4 goals, but if you looked at that and hadn't seen the game, you'd be like, oh, well, and Villa had all these shots and tested McCarthy loads and he made loads of saves. Actually, Villa were unlucky to not to win, but actually we dominated the first half. We won everything in the middle of the park, and we were clinical. I can't really think of a single result at the moment that's been harsh. I think maybe the Spurs 5-2 defeat, that you could argue that was harsh, but because we played well going forwards, but defensively we were playing this high line, it was absolute suicide. So for me, I have no complaints about the results based on the performances that were put in each of those games so far.
4 unbelievable goals as well at Villa Park. Freaking out, every one of them
Yeah.
would be contender for goal of the month, I think.
Yeah, I think given that it was in November, they all are. I mean, I still can't really believe that we went 4-0 up in a Premier League match. It's still mad. I mean, against a good Villa side as well. And in fairness, well, obviously I don't want to talk about Aston Villa too much because this is a Southampton Newcastle preview. But Villa played well. They proved why they've been high up in the league and they've had a good start. But at the same time, I think we're just oozing with confidence right now, and it showed. In all honesty, as soon as Ward-Prowse lined up that free kick, okay, yeah, it's a bit of individual quality each time, but I think both times, he was confident. I think we were all confident that he was going to put it in the back of the net.
I mean, you mentioned that high line that got you caught out against Spurs when you, what was it, 5-2? It was 5-2, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
5-2, yeah,
Uh,
5-2.
do you reckon he'll play that again? Do you reckon he'll take that risk against
Nah,
Newcastle?
no, not a chance. I don't know what it was, because we had such a good post-lockdown last season. I think we were one of the best teams in the league. I can't remember exactly where we were on the form table for post-lockdown, but for whatever reason, we came back against Crystal Palace on the opening day and against Spurs and in the cup as well, getting knocked out by Brentford with this ridiculous high line. It's like I don't know where it came from because it almost felt like we'd worked out what works for us in lockdown. We'd seen, how the results and the performances were getting much better. And we were like, okay, great. So we've got 5-6 weeks break. It's hardly anything. It's just a case of back in this new season and the exact same. And then, getting caught out so many times against Palace, obviously not as beside as Spurs. And then you go against Tottenham and, Harry Kane and some ripped us to shreds. So whatever Hasenhuttl was thinking with that, I don't know. But he scrapped it, and we went back to our old system, our usual system, and we've been class since.
And the other games in the Premier League as well, I don't think you've conceded at St Mary's, have you? 2-0 over West Brom and
Yeah,
Everton.
no,
One being a big one, wasn't it?
no, 2-2-0 games against West Brom and Everton. So again, yeah, defensively we've seemed to sort it out, and I think you have to look at Yannick Vestergaard's inclusion, which still for me is just mental to say because he had such a difficult first 2 seasons down here. But I don't know what he's done. I think he's worked on his fitness a little bit, but he's just completely turned it around, and he's easily our best defender at the moment. As opposed to, in the summer, everyone was calling for him to be sold. Really, he just didn't look like he fit in. It was a big call for Jack Stevens to be dropped. He had a great season last year, but Vestergaard's warranted a starting spot now. With 2 goals and a couple clean sheets, and yeah, I'd say best defender at the moment at the club.
We've got to touch upon one of your arguably best players today. News broke, that very good news for Newcastle fans, but lifting news of your Southampton fans, unlucky times for you. Danny Ings ruled out for 4 to 6 weeks, I believe, with another knee injury. He's going to have surgery tomorrow, so obviously he will miss Friday night's clash at St Mary's a bit. You're good, whereas we're delighted. He's not the only threat, though. I think I've got to see before you touch on it. You'll know more than me, but I rate Che Adams. I think he can come in and probably do a job, and obviously you've still got other threats along the pitch, like how well Ward Prowse was the other day. But that is surely a big blow for you lot, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge. Danny Ings is the focal point of this team. In all honesty, I'm shocked as to how it's taken this long for him to have a decent spell on the sidelines at Saints. He came in on loan 2 years ago now and was in and out with injury. But last season, a big part of him scoring 22 Premier League goals was the fact that he stayed fit for basically the whole season, which was mental after, having 2 ACL injuries at Liverpool. It is a massive blow. I mean, it helps that we've got an international break, so that will reduce the amount of games that he misses. But yeah, like you said, I think Che Adams is probably now relied on to be the main goal threat. We've got Theo Walcott in as well now, and I think he's probably going to start alongside Adams up front, as opposed to playing on the wing where he's played in the 2 games at Saints so far. It's his first game back at St Mary's as well as a Southampton player, so he'll definitely be up for a goal. Even the likes of Shane Long, I think he's had a few career goals against Newcastle. We've got a new young lad, Dan Unlandulu. I can't pronounce his name. He came on against Everton for 5 minutes. I mean, he did all right. Obafemi as well. We've got options there. Even we could play Redmond up front if need be. But yeah, we've got other strong areas, and I still think without Ings, we've got enough to score goals and win the match on Friday.
What have you made of Ralph Hasenhuttl? I mean, was that 9-0 loss just over a year ago now?
Yeah.
The best thing that could have happened to Southampton? It seemed it could have went either way. I mean, even he said
it's mental you say it, but it's spot on. It really is the best thing that could have happened to this football club. I think it was going to happen at some point. There was always going to be a major defeat. I mean, I personally wouldn't have seen it under Ralph. I think I thought it would have come earlier, to be honest, especially that season where you guys came back up and we were literally knocking on the door of relegation, literally to the final day almost. I would have thought something like that would have happened then. But no, it was a massive kick in the teeth, but it was really sort of a realization for Ralph as to, he needs to change the players that he's using, arguably go back to the system he's favoured. And, I think it's not necessarily the turning point. I think the turning point for us was drawing 2-2 at Arsenal and playing them off the park. You could also look at how poor we were against Everton after the Leicester game last season. We lost 2-1 against a really poor Everton team. And then basically since Christmas last year, we turned it around, and we've been classed since. We've basically been a very good Premier League, very good competitive Premier League side for almost a year now. And yeah, I think obviously you look at that 9-0 and think of it as a turning point, and it did need to happen. As harsh it would have been to say at the time, but now you look on it a year later, and yeah, it's probably the best thing that could have happened to this football club.
Definitely. I mean, our rate hasn't like from what I'm looking at. I think he's done a great job. He hasn't had much money to spend, has he? So what he's done there, doing really well. I mean, where do you think he's going to realistically finish come the end of the season?
I mean, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, because this is, I know this team, I know this club, and at some point it will drop off a little bit. I still think bare minimum top half. I think given the manager that we've got and the way he's got some of these players playing, I think if we finished 11th or 12th, I'd personally be disappointed with that. Obviously, I'd love to say Europe. I'd love to say we'd knock on the door of a 7th, 6th spot. It's going to be really, really difficult. But I think for me, between 8th and 10th, I'd take that right now. You know, you look at Leicester last season and how good they were, and sort of outside contenders for a Europa spot or Champions League. It almost looked like. I'd love to say that we're going to replicate that sort of form, but I just think it's beyond us a little bit. You know, now that we've had a couple injuries, we've got Ings out for a few weeks. I just feel like there's going to be a knock-on effect, and for me, I think top half, I'd absolutely take that.
I think that would be a good finish for you. Where do you think Newcastle will finish? What do you think of our manager? What do you think of Steve Bruce?
I mean, it's just a bit drab. It's just a bit dull at the moment. I mean, in fairness, I think you guys have had a decent start now. I think you've got under the radar a little bit. I think, you know, Callum Wilson's, was it 6 goals he's got? You know, that's a great return. I don't know. I think Newcastle. I think you'll agree with me, mate. About Steve Bruce is not the long-term future of Newcastle United. I personally don't see it as an outsider. I think it's a case of maybe knock on the door of the top 12. Well, you're 11th now. You've had a decent start, but under the current management, I can't see Newcastle being a top half side until, you know, something changes there. I think at the moment it's good. I'd see Newcastle finishing 13th, 12th, 13th, 14th this season. Like, I think it's going to be comfortable mid-table for you guys, but no, at the moment under Bruce, I wouldn't say you guys would get top half, not yet.
Giorgio's happy that there's no Ings. So since there is no Danny Ings, mate, who's the danger man? Who do you think Brucey should be, you know, in training ground now, pointing out to the lads? Have a look at him.
I mean, obviously, I'd love to say Shea Adams because he's the striker that plays next to Ings, but I think one of our most underappreciated, underrated players is Stuart Armstrong. Everything he does, you know, is so key for this team and for this formation, this system. You know, whenever he's out, he's had a few niggly injuries over the last 2 seasons, and whenever he's out, we miss him dearly. So I personally think he's going to be a big threat. I do think now that Shea's put the ball in the back of the net a couple of times now, he's got confidence, and I think he'll be a bit more clinical if a chance comes his way. And I'd also like to say Walcott as well, which is mental to think, but I really think the fact that, you know, with the narrative of it being his first home game back at Saints, I really do back him to, you know, have a good game and possibly get a goal with that as well. Nathan Redmond's as well, you can list him, Moose Gineppo. Like there are loads of players I could list, but for me, I think goal threat wise, I'd be saying Walcott, Adams, or Armstrong.
How old's Theo Walcott now? What was your thought?
It was really weird because it came out of nowhere. We knew we needed another right-sided winger just for a bit of depth because we didn't really have anyone to back up Armstrong. And, you know, here comes these links with Theo Walcott. I mean, Ralph has said publicly about how he wants to be signing players under 24, and then we're linked with a Premier League veteran almost, you know, regardless of the fact that he came through our army. And I think that's also part of why he came down to Southampton. I think he needed to be loved. It's a bit like Gareth Bale situation with him going back to Spurs. I mean, I'm not comparing the 2 players, but I think the story is quite similar in the fact that they just needed to go somewhere where they were loved. He wasn't appreciated at Everton, and regardless of what he does on the football pitch for the club this season, you know, the fans will love him, regardless of whether they're in the stadium at some point this year or whether they're watching him from home. You know, he's a Southampton boy, and, you know, he'll have the support of the entire fan base.
I liked what he was saying when he's first came back, when he was saying pulling on the shirt again. Felt like 15 years ago or something.
Yeah, that's what we need. That's exactly what we need, and it's what he needs. He needs to feel appreciated, and we need a player who wants to play for this football club.
Quickly then, we'll get into what you think the score is going to be and who you think that the team lineups will be. But last year it was a close game. We'll look at the fixtures you have from the previous years. Obviously 1-0 St. Maximin last year. I remember missing a penalty as well. I think McCarthy had a really good game that game.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, cool. That's the last game I've been to. That was the last game I've been to as a fan.
Was it? I think that was the last one for us before
lockdown.
The
last game for both teams before the suspension, which is just mental. That's
how long ago that was. Yeah, I was I didn't make that one actually. The last game for me was West Brom in the FA Cup, but
yeah,
a few weeks before that. It seems like a lifetime ago since when a stadium.
Yeah, that was like early March. Mental.
And then we had a couple of draws, back-to-back draws, the last couple of years, 0-0 and 2-2. And then we had a bit of a horrid time, to be honest, at St. Mary's. A few years of losses.
Relegation. That's true.
back-to-back 4-0 losses in 2014, 2013, 2-0 loss in 2012, and then we hadn't played in about 8 years, and then we won 2-1 back in 05. But heading on to Friday night then without Danny Ings, how do you think you're going to go? And give us a score prediction.
I mean, I think it's going to be a close game. I think it was going to be a close game with Ings as well. You know what? I think because we're so confident and we're playing so well, I do feel like we're not going to lose this game. Bare minimum, we'll get a draw from it. But I'm going to stay confident. You know, we want to go top of the league, regardless of how little time it's going to be for. And I think I'm going to go 2-1. I think we'll get the goals, and I think we'll be able to get over the line and get 3 points.
I respect the optimism, mate. Nice and confident. So you should be, well, to be fair.
I think if we'd been going into this after a defeat at Villa, potentially I'd be a lot more cautious. But this is the best form we've been in for years. And I think we need to keep it going. I back us to keep it going as well. But yeah, bare minimum, I think we'll get a draw from it. But I'll say 2-1.
2-1. I'm gonna go 2-2. To be honest, I can see this being a draw.
I think it'll be a good game, like you said. I think it's going to be tight. I think it could be a good game, but I think personally we'll just get over the line. You know, maybe have that extra bit of quality still, because even without Ings, we've got a few players who are in really good form.
I think Brucey's most likely going to stick with these 5 at the back. That's been working the last couple of games. Jacob Murphy at right wing back, and the middle 3, and then seeing behind Wilson. Like you say, Wilson's on fire for us. So if we get a service into him, he will score goals. I'd like to see Ryan Fraser start. To be fair, he's been coming off the bench, but he's unbelievable, the impact he has, and he's another Scotland call up for him. So, like you say, it could be an end. It could be an interesting game. I know Hasenhuttl seems to be on the front foot a bit. So if Brucey doesn't go super negative, which I don't think he will, I think the win over Everton gives him space to hopefully have the ability to give his players confidence, just go out there and try and get 3 points, and then maybe let us see a result in a high scoring draw. So I'll stick with a 2-2.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair result. I do think it'll be a good game. I obviously Ings being absent is going to be the main headline for this one, but yeah, it's the first time I can remember in a long time that we've had the opportunity to go top of the league, and so I'll be confident and say we can get a win. So I don't know how we're going to do it, whether we'll batter use, whether it will be a last minute scrappy goal, but I think we will just about get over the line.
Hope you're wrong, mate. Hope you're wrong. Right, cheers. That's Dan from the Saints View. The link will be in the description. Thanks very much for joining me, mate.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
Anytime, mate. Good luck after Friday night, yeah?
Yeah, top man. Thank you. I'll see you later.
See you later.